group of people interested in identifying and sharing ways of promoting engineering innovation internationally and in India. And this includes all aspects of engineering practice and education. For example, manufacturing, electronics, software and AI technologies, logistics, agriculture, design, entrepreneurship, and others. Renowned experts from all parts of the world have delivered 61 lectures so far, and video recordings of these lectures are readily available for all at this following website. Also, pre-lecture discussions are organized fortnightly at 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Please write to this email address to receive notices of these talks. Uh, so the session is about innovation and economic growth. What do we know so far about the relationship between the two? There's been a lot of research over past century, and especially in the last 50 years, on this issue, how innovation and economic growth in society are related to each other. And this slide summarizes the four main findings of this research, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail referring to specific individuals who have whose work
I think you have
highlighted in the recent years. Pardon me?
No, I was telling Sudhir that you have to switch the slides.
Okay.
You have to tell him.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So first, for innovation and prosperity, economic growth, you need economic and political institutions, well-designed and stable. Stability, economic and political stability is very important of these institutions for innovation. Otherwise, innovation, economic growth does not take place. Second, when innovation occurs and economic growth occurs, they bring economic benefits. And to continue the economic growth, it's very important for the society to prevent the elite of the society from capturing most, if not all, benefits of innovation. Because unless society has a mechanism for preventing the elite from capturing all the benefits, everything ends up in their pockets, or most of the benefits end up in their pockets, and the vast majority of population is left without anything. And if elite capture of benefits is not prevented, innovation and economic growth does not continue. Third, the advantages of innovation are often accompanied by pain for the older firms and their workers. After all, innovating technology, innovating firms have more benefits, but many of these benefits may come at the expense of older firms and their workers and shareholders, causing destruction, which is very difficult to swallow, especially in a democratic system, because people who lose jobs and sales and profits are going to rush to the political authority to save them. And unless we prevent, we have to be able to, a society has to be able to make this destruction creative in the sense that we have to peacefully allow these industries and firms with obsolete technology to close down and disappear if they are not able to innovate themselves. Fourth, sustained innovation also requires very important, cross-fertilization of whys of science with hows of crafts. So whys of science. Science asks the question, what is called prepositional knowledge. It's general proposition, whether it's Newton's laws of motion or laws of electrical circuitry. These are general propositions. That's what science does. And hows of craft and skills is how to do something. That is prescriptive knowledge that comes from actually doing things. And sustained innovation always requires the cross-fertilization, very close connection between science and skills. Without that, innovation cannot be sustained, and economic growth is not sustained. So this is basically the outline of four main issues that I'll talk in a little bit more detail in this session, or we shall talk about, Sab and I. Next slide, please.
Yep.
First, I think we talked about this. Okay.
We are on the slide which says why nations fail.
Yes. Okay. So these two gentlemen, Darren Acemoglu and G is silent in his name, it's a Turkish name, and James Robinson, wrote a book in 2012, Why Nations Fail. And they argued, by the way, both of them received Nobel Prize in economics in 2024. The economic and technological growth requires political stability, we talked about briefly, and creative destruction. What will prevent creative destruction? Because established firms and established organizations whose obsolete technology should lead them to shut down, or if they are not able to innovate themselves, they have the power and connections to rush to the political authorities who may grant them monopolies. And those monopolies may oftentimes prevent innovative firms, new technologies from coming to the market. And preventing this creative destruction of older technologies is important in society. Second, they give example of English Bill of Rights in 1689 in England in 17th century, and they argue that that was one of the reasons, one of the main causes of why industrial revolution could take place in that country. Of course, there are many theories about why industrial revolution took place in England and Europe and not in India, but I won't go into that detail. But Acemoglu and Robinson mention English Bill of Rights as a means to prevent the established firms from using political power to prevent new firms, innovative firms, from coming to the marketplace. Third, they argue that they say that the differences in innovation and economic growth in societies are due to these economic and political systems and institutions. Because traditionally, it has been argued that these are matters of culture, geography, weather, etc. But culture, geography, and weather do not change that much. They remain unchanged over a long period of time. So theirs is an economic and political institutions explanation of innovation and economic growth, and not culture, geography, or weather-based explanation. Let me go to the next slide. Again, Darren Echomulu and Simon Johnson in 2023 wrote, and they also were Nobel laureates in 2024 in economics. Their main argument is that harnessing technological progress for social progress without capture of benefits by elite requires certain conditions. And these conditions are listed below. First, there have to be market incentives. People who innovate have to be able to bring their product in the market and earn money from it. And if you prevent them from doing so, and this is often done by making laws that prevent newer products from coming to the marketplace for benefit of obsolete firms. Second, they argue, you may or may not agree with it, but that the government should break up the big technology firms into smaller firms. As you know, in 1980s, in the United States, the U.S. government broke up the monopoly of AT&T, American Telephone and Telegraph Company, which was a huge firm running. It was a technological innovator, actually, but breaking it up has led to even much faster growth in innovation and economic growth in the United States. So, and the similar argument has been made now for large technology firms, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and etc., or Meta, I guess, that firms should not be allowed to become too large. They argue for tax reforms, so firms and individuals with large income pay fair share of taxes to support governance in society. And as you know, in many countries, the United States included, I don't know what the situation is in India, very rich people are able to avoid paying their fair share of taxes by various tax loopholes and other means. Fourth, and it's very important that the economy, the government, and the firms must invest in workers' human capital. That is, training them, educating them, and I'll come back to this issue. It's a very important factor in their analysis of what leads to economic progress, economic growth, and innovation. And finally, they argue that privacy of individuals and protection of the data is extremely important for progress, economic progress. Let me go to the next slide. These are also two more Nobel laureates from 2025. Philippe Aghion of France and England, LSE, and Peter Howitt from Canada. Their argument is in the 1992 book. The argument is for creative destruction. Let me just describe it briefly. Innovations create new opportunities and disruption. For example, when the cars arrived, the horse cart industry and people who made horse carts and gears for horses and all those industries had to lost business and had to close down. And that, they say, it was creative destruction. When computers came, the typewriter industry, after a little while, disappeared. And now nobody makes or sells or buys typewriters anymore. So if you keep trying to save the horse cart industry when cars come, or typewriter industry when computers come, you're going to discourage innovation and discourage economic growth. There's a good example of digital and chemical photography. At Kodak, which was the world's leading photography giant in the until 1970s, maybe 80s, the Kodak had a small group of young engineers who were the first to develop digital photography for Kodak. But Kodak was making so much money selling film and printing paper. And those businesses, which were cash cows for Kodak, were being run by the most senior executives in Kodak. And those senior executives made the big decisions about capital, and they didn't give the money for young engineers who had developed digital photography first in the world, to develop them into products and bring them to the market, because they were threatened that their film and paper business will be hurt by digital photography. What happened? Today, a few years later, other firms brought digital photography to the marketplace, and Kodak had to shut down, and now it doesn't exist anymore. So there's what we call Tandav Natya of destruction, which is essential for healthy rejuvenation. In this case, this example, the film and photographic paper industry divisions of Kodak, highly profitable at the time, had to shut down, had to be destroyed for digital photography to come up. Otherwise, it won't happen. And finally, the consequence of innovation for growth depend on policy, on pain inflicted on older technology. As some of you might remember, in 1960s and 70s, Government of India adopted a sick mills policy, because there were hundreds of mills, textile mills in India, who had old machine, old technologies, had not innovated, and government spent piles of money trying to save them and save those firms from new technologies being developed all over the world. And India, which had dominated textile industry in the whole world for 2,000 years, now lost its leading position in the world, by an attempt to try to save the older obsolete technology firms, and rather than promoting innovation. I'll go to the next slide. And most recently, Joel Walker also received the Nobel Prize in economics in 2025. Okay, so Joel Mocker argues that asked the question, why has there been such sustained economic growth since Industrial Revolution in the 17th century? I'll show you the picture, the graph in just a moment, because there have been major macro innovations such as steam, power, and microbes, and micro innovations like Bessemer process for making steel, telephone, etc. And they were major innovations that changed society. And again, he comes back to the issue of prepositional knowledge. Sorry for the error in spelling here. Why of savants versus prescriptive knowledge, how of crafts knowledge. And those have to be combined together. And the cross-fertilization between these two leads to innovation. Science plus craft and skills leads to invention. And that is his main argument. Let me show you some of the charts. Here's a GDP per, from, I think it's mostly European data, not Indian or Chinese data, because those numbers will look quite different. From 1300 to about mid 17th century, there's not a whole lot of economic growth. And then from later part of 17th century, economic growth started up. And the printing press led to some growth, and then Newton's laws of motion, as we know, came in 17th century. And then this next graph of GDP per person in the United Kingdom and Sweden from early 19th century to now 21st century, you can see the introduction of steam engine,
Okay, bye.
three-phase generator, electric motors, safer workplace, household appliances, power grid, and now artificial intelligence, medical technologies, robotics, and so on. So there's been a huge increase in economic growth and increase in innovation. And the argument is that in this period, these two things, and the guy on the left here in the next slide, guy on the left, okay, the guy on the left is the person who has the skills, knowledge of how to make things, prescriptive knowledge. And guy on the right is the scientific knowledge, propositional knowledge, who founds a principle. And those two things have to be combined together to create growth. The same idea that we talked about earlier. Now, next slide. What happens in India? What is the current, let's ask ourselves, what is the current level of innovation in India? We can see examples of major scientific discoveries which radiated from India to all over the world. Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta, the heliocentric theory, the mathematics of Bhaskar and others, the zero invention, and there was so much scientific discipline, scientific principles developed in India. And in technology, we can go back Sushruta in medicine and surgery, Charaka in medicine. You can see Iron Pillar of India in Delhi near Qutub Minar, which is a marvel of Indian metallurgical technology. And the same thing was true of Damascus steel, very high carbon steel of which swords were made in Damascus. That's why it's called Damascus steel. But that was exported from India for more than 2 millennia. Cotton textiles. Actually, once I was in New York in the Museum of Natural History, and I was looking at a mummy, Egyptian mummy, and I read that plate there, and it said this Egyptian mummy was from about 3,400 years old from now, 3,400, about 1400 BC, was wrapped in Indian muslin. It was such fine cloth. All these scientific and skill technology accomplishments radiated from India to the world. But the question then is, why must we go back 1 or 2 millennia to find these innovations in India? And why, last time I asked about the Orient ceiling fans in India. And I asked them where they made this. Oh, they are Indian. And then, of course, in 50s and 60s, Orient table and ceiling fans were made in India. But now they're not made in India at all. They are made in China. And they're imported and sold as Indian. They say, oh, we can't compete with Chinese on cost. But that is technology. Technology requires you to lower the cost. Otherwise, you don't have technology. In India, in manufacturing at least, that has become a problem. In some fields, we are doing well, but in manufacturing, not so well. So, next. We go back to the issue again in India, to the issue of flow of all kinds of knowledge and skills across society is a necessity, as many people I mentioned earlier have pointed out. So the flow of all kinds of knowledge, propositional, science of why, and prescriptive skills of how, across all society is a necessity for innovation. And science without skill is barren. You can keep science, but it doesn't make anything, yielding few useful artifacts and methods. And skill without science remains stuck in the slow lane of tradition. You keep doing the same thing again and again, because if you don't have knowledge of scientific disciplines to make advancement, it is both of them together that bring about innovation. Our engineering schools today admit on the basis of knowledge of science, not skills, and impart few skills in their curriculum. Our skilled people receive little scientific knowledge, so we keep them in separate compartments. Engineering graduates for chemistry, physics, mathematics, scientific disciplines, skilled people who know how to do things, don't get the scientific knowledge. And knowledge and skills are really reside in the same physical body. So the vast number of engineers take up white-collar jobs, rarely letting grease on their hands to experiment with alternative designs. Almost no skilled workmen have propositional knowledge to help them invent even better devices, because they stay in air-conditioned comfort and the workshop din doesn't get together, if at all. The difficulty of attracting the educated. When after World War I, when British found it difficult to get doctors and engineers from UK to come to India, they tried to open engineering and medical schools in India. But it was very difficult for them to get people who had 10 or 12 grade education, because those people were mostly from high caste, and the high caste people will not dirty their hands in engineering or handle the body fluids of patients for the medicine. So they switched the curriculum of these engineering schools and medical schools mostly to science, which was appealing to the high caste students who had the secondary education, which was a prerequisite for those things. Combining science and skills in India was not easy for them. So the classes of government service today are designed for two kinds of knowledge, but they don't come together. Next slide. But the problems are just deeper than education. If we look around the world, anthropological studies, we find that women moving from one family to another through marriage had been an important channel of dissemination of knowledge across society in India and elsewhere in the world. Increasing prevalence of endogamous marriages with narrowly defined groups by professionals closed this channel of knowledge skill dissemination some 2000 to 1500 years ago. After that, and we look at the evidence on research on genetics on the Indian population. I'll just mention very briefly, next slide please. There's a new finding from scientists from India and US which have shown that after about 1900 years ago, about 1000 AD, Indian society moved into segregated endogamous groups, which was not always the norm because genetic analysis shows that some 1900 to 4200 years ago, the Indian population was a melting pot. They intermarried. It was only around 1900 years ago that castes and categories in population got established and disallowed, endogamous categories got established and disallowed marriage outside the community. Communities existed before, but they intermarried before that. But about 1900 years ago, they stopped. Intermarriage among various groups became increasingly rare, and scientists call this practice of marrying within the group endogamy. And these researchers I have listed here have found that India became very endogamous. And today, Indian population shows that for the last 2000 years or so, Indian society has not been a melting pot, has been endogamous. And that has a consequence for intermingling of skills and science. Higher caste people stayed with the principles, propositional knowledge. Lower caste were given the skills, and two did not meet. Next slide. What's the path forward to technology? Let me try to wrap up. India gives out more than 1 million diplomas in engineering each year, but few of them can advance technology. Besides chemistry, physics, mathematics, we have to add significant skills as a component of admissions criteria and curriculum for engineering programs. Redefine responsibilities of engineers in government and private sector to include engineering innovation. Remove barriers to skilled workmen to acquire science education on the job to become engineers themselves. Refresher skills training for engineers throughout their careers, and maybe you have better suggestions. So I'm going to stop here and have Sub will have something to say, and then we'll take up the discussion. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for laying out this. And I want to look at a little bit like my own education and see what happened. How come I never got to deal with the skill part of it and mostly science? Even though I was fortunate, I was in Pilani at the time, they were experimenting, so we had to go work a year in industry during our curriculum. Without even when I can tell you this, that I wanted to have carpentry set since I was 7. My parents won't buy it for me because they said, "Oh, it'll make the house dirty. You're gonna do this." So we have a certain attitude towards things done by hand. I think this is a very great impediment. Once I came to the US, I started fixing my own cars, fixing everything. So now suddenly the skill and the knowledge I had started creating ways of thinking about different things. And I think this is one thing I have observed in US, in Netherlands and Sweden, where there is a movement of knowledge coming from industry to education and back. Many of my friends in Sweden and Netherlands have all had 2 to 3 years of industrial experience, and often they work fixing their homes. So you can see how socially we have mentally divided these two parts and still struggle with bringing them together. And as Shyam laid out, this kind of separation removes the flow of knowledge. And without the flow of knowledge, what we do is we continuously imitate things from outside rather than looking at inside and seeing what skills and science that need to come together in order for innovation to take place in a relevant and appropriate fashion in the Indian context. So these are my general thoughts, and this is not only for a nation, even for a firm. How you manage your knowledge, how the flows are, become very important. I think the implications of what these economists are saying, it's not just at the nation level, but it permeates throughout the nation's attitude towards knowledge and the production of knowledge. So this is what my take on what Shyam presented, and said we need to rethink the entire institutional and other processes, taking knowledge flows as the critical component of a nation's survival, progress, and innovation. I'll stop there and let others speak. And we see 3 or 4 people here, and I would encourage you to jump in and talk about your own experience as well. So please do not hesitate. We are a small group. Let's have a good discussion. Thanks. Sudhir?
Yeah. So one, see, one of the issues is whether we are splitting this into a social or a material side of it, or it could actually be a breakdown of a lot of socio-material relationships. Historically, there have been some disruptions, but then whether there was an attempt to rebuild or reconnect that social material in different ways, that is where you see a consistent issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, for example, it may either get treated as a social side of the problem or material side of the problem, and not seen as a socio-material problem. Right? And that could also be one of the reasons why the moment you separate it into a social, then all this logic of class, caste, and other things come into play, right? But it is not devoid of the material element that is not deeply integrated into whatever you say, regular education or anything. There is a clear separation of this which has been consistently happening. Right? So separation of a classroom, and within classroom it only becomes information processing, abstract information, and at most among a group of students who are from the same age group and so on, right? So these are all the things which lead to those kind of persistent separations. And wherever some efforts are made to integrate, it is again, we are also working in a larger ecosystem where the pull is in different directions. So if you basically ask a student or a faculty or an industry, how deeply are they interested in solving a local problem which really matters to them? It is very hard to get all these 3 elements to sync up around one issue, because each one will be running in one different direction. So today, to fix this problem, it's becoming even more challenging unless there are some broader constraints that emerge which restrict the external flow, then the possibility that this internal connections will happen may also start increasing. But that is again in an open economy and open world kind of scenarios. Probably those kind of arguments will not be seen. At least in a country like India, it will be very difficult to enforce policies on those lines.
Anybody in the, who is there, can you say something from your perspective? Please do not hesitate.
I'm Tanuja Shevde from IIIT Jabalpur. I really like the philosophy behind what Shyam Sunder has presented regarding this, why the innovation is not going to the society. I can find from my experience that students in groups, they are continuously addressing the societal problem, be it the problems like medical problems, small medical problems at home, to the cancer like of diseases. They are actually building small low-cost models. The problem is, and those things when they are published and going as a patent, maybe the other people are taking up. But then, because of the academia industry connect is very poor. I'm not here exactly addressing the IITs where the startups are there, but in general, various colleges, IIITs, NITs, there we do not see those many startups while the students are actually working in the societal problem. The problems which will be taking care of so many of society problems, starting from
could you please turn on your video so we can see you? That'll be nice.
Okay, video on. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Please turn on.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
Right. So that is why at all these platforms, I continue to say this is the problem. Industry connect. We see in the Japan, we have so many professors linked with us with the Japan. They are directly working on industry problem and industry take up that problem. But when our students are working on the industrial problem or society problem, they continue to work up to the credit and then they simply let it go because our startup ecosystem is not that mature, which will give them confidence that, okay, finally they will go up to making taking it to a market with the so many phases in between, including the death valley. So I think we need to address that problem, how to take those small society related products to market with the help of industry or otherwise. Of course, now startup ecosystem is developing, but how long it will take to mature, I can't say. So all the time we are not looking at the solution which Americans have done or Europeans have done. Our students, they are developing innovative solution, novel system, which can be put into use, but then we are lacking somewhere. We need to address that actually. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I spent 4 years in India between 2008 and 12. I found there is a lot of enthusiasm among Indian young people wanting to solve social problems and relevant problems. As you correctly point out, the ecosystem and some of the bureaucratic structures that we have essentially extinguish that flame. I'll give you an incident. I was in IIIT Bangalore and I gave a lecture and then I said, come and work with me because I'll let you imagine. And a young lady came up to me and said, I don't believe you. I said, why? When I asked to imagine, my own professor said, no, this is too much. Do what you are given within this scope. So we don't give space to the younger people to not only produce these solutions, but provide the underlying infrastructure, as you correctly point out, to help them make these things a reality. start up in a digital world and start socially effective tools for people to have a better life are two different things. Not that digital tools don't help. I think we need to figure out how to balance these two things, which I don't think is happening now. Anyway, I should keep quiet.
Maybe I'll
Anybody
just
else?
add one point. Just add
Please
one
go ahead.
point. Yeah, Mr. Shyam Sunder pointed out this correctly, that in the Indian system, especially, the educated class, it is still the taboo. Like if a person is doing, like I'm from engineering, so if you have done BTech, so within few months you should get job. The taboo is there. Your son or your daughter could not get job. So there will be a pressure. So even if the person wants to go for a startup, to take that problem, because it is very much with the close to his heart, but then because of this pressure that I should get job first, I should start earning instead of struggling for, let's say, 4 to 5 years to establish my startup. So somewhere our psyche is also there, the Indian homes, that they start pressurizing, you should get job. And therefore, whenever there is an orientation program during the BTech first year, the parents will always ask the question, what is the recruitment percentage, placement percentage? While now today's era is, you should not be seeker. So that psyche is there, which Mr. Shyam Sundar pointed out very correctly.
Anybody else in the audience? Please unmute yourself and speak. Thank you for speaking. Go ahead, please.
Sir, good evening. Good morning in the US, I guess. I am Professor Muthukumar from NIT Trichy. Thanks for the very nice talk. I have a couple of observations. As the professor said, the one important point is skill-based science or science-based, only the science-based. That is a very important aspect. We need to look into that. Currently, we have to reduce courses and then motivating the students to pursue a lot of courses which are more interest for them. That is being practiced in leading institutes like IITs and NITs. Students are motivated. For example, if he is interested in learning computer science, for example, so he joined chemical engineering. So he has to complete core courses of chemical engineering. Then electives he can choose in computer science. Then he can enhance his knowledge and so on. But even then, it is more of, like as Professor said, the teaching, theory teaching. Professors will teach and they gain knowledge. But practical aspects are a bit less. And also, as Professor said, students are more comfortable with computers. They like computer culture and AC culture. That's what Professor was mentioning. They like that. But experimental side, workshop, suppose we ask them to work in a workshop for a day or do something related to development of a product or something in the lab, they are not showing much interest. Whereas if you ask them to work on something like deep learning, data science, and so on, analytics, management side, they are very much interested. And of course, as Madam said, students are very much interested in getting a job rather than going for a like startup or any kind of thing. Of course, parental pressure is there. More than that, all engineering students are now looking job in management sector, data analytics sector. They are not looking for a job in core engineering also. I don't know what is the reason. Probably might be the salary they are getting in that sector might be very attractive. Very few are interested in core in staying back and then working for their own branch. So these are a couple of my views. Apart from these, I just wanted to know, like, do we have to have more like practical classes compared to theory classes? Will it improve the innovation and so on? Please comment on that. Thank you very much.
I used to teach a course on product design at CMU. We had industrial sponsors who came and the projects were brought by them, and they gave a small amount of money to buy equipment and also to give some incentive to the faculty to participate in these projects. Okay, some incentive, monetary, so that they can go to conferences and so on. That was one. And the second one was intellectual property rights. I won't go there, but in effect, many of the things that were produced by the class were absorbed by the industry. So you have to make a partnership. This is something I had mentioned to earlier as well. You go to the local industry, they don't have a lot of money to improve themselves, right? Tell them, give me 30,000 rupees, not much. Just give me 30,000 rupees. I'll have your students work on your problem. And whatever comes out of it, you can have it. Okay? So that you can improve. So create like Sudhir was saying, we have to create these relationships which are broken. Right? How do you structure things in such a way that you can build these relationships which don't exist? So we used to get at least 8 or 9 industry, everything from trains to what do you call medical devices to all kinds of companies. Right? So when you start getting about 5 companies, you actually have quite a bit of money. 30,000 times 5, 1.5 lakhs. You can play around with it in different ways. You can even start a new project for which there is no funding, no industry, but you see a local need in the campus, which can be satisfied. It's my contention, there is enough need all around us. It's just that we need to connect the right pieces to attempt to solve the need. You see? And I think this is possible. I think many of the small industry people are more enlightened than the people in big industry.
It is
and
correct.
we have to work with that material which we have, which is the small industry, because they want to expand, they want to do better. There is some drive, right? That's
So
my.
I'll add on that is in Tamil Nadu, the government has a scheme called Innovation Voucher Program. It's a very simple scheme, largely meant for promoting MSME innovation, and it has been going on since say 2018. There are 2 types of grants they give. One is for initially doing a proof of concept, and the second one is for taking it to the next level, building a reasonable next level prototype. And they expect the company to put some money and the government will give some grant. But the key part here is they need a knowledge partner to work along with the company for this purpose. Now, what we have seen there is most MSMEs don't take this proposal on their own, right? Because they already have a preconceived idea about it will take a long time to get money from the government, and somebody has to write the proposal, all those constraints and their past experiences, they don't participate. But when I was part of that program for some time, what we did was to actually send out a team to reach out to these companies and write the proposal for them.
Yeah.
Right? Then co-present that proposal to the committee. And after the proposal is awarded, the organization or the knowledge partner actually delivers the project for them. These are small amounts. It's like a 2 lakhs grant or a 5 lakh grant and something like that. But these are things which will work only when somebody reaches out to them, helps them do the proposal, and we could largely work through our incubator and do this. About last 4 or 5 years, we have done about 35-40 projects like that. Right. So there are opportunities like this, which are not large scale. But then when you look from a faculty's point of view, this will look like a too small a proposal to even participate, right? Because from a faculty's grant acquisition point of view, this 2 lakhs, 5 lakhs will not be seen as a significant proposal. And the institutions themselves may not have mechanisms for allowing a faculty to go and prospect something like this, right? They will have their own internal constraints. They can be done. Like, for example, you have an industrial consultancy policy, which gives a small incentive for faculty to go and prospect. You have the program overheads and other things, which can be used more creatively to support these kind of things. This is where the institutional changes need to also come in. Then people probably can reach out and do that. But somebody has to go to the company. Then only it will start working. Right? Otherwise, it will not work. And another example I will also add is, it is not that students are only interested in software and so on. What we see in the club scenarios, right? Say, for example, there are students working on this automotive competition and other things where they build a UAV or a small concept car and other things for different competition purposes. So there, what you actually see is a lot of energy those teams put in actually building that artifact. So that artifact creates a kind of connection for them to persist with it, develop. But then their entire thinking is bounded by that competition. So beyond competition, it may not go, but at least that energy to sustain and build something exists in that. So this is where actually creating learning experiences which are more localized, which have a small goal and a target, and then enabling that could be the kind of interventions that should come into an academic environment to make this shift possible. We largely work in the extremes. We say something small or it will become something extreme. All these intermediate steps also can be looked at.
And also, I would mention, I think Sudhir is doing it to a large extent under the banner of design. At least at CMU, what we did was we opened the product design course to everybody, from students from English, technical report writers, to business school students, to computer science students, mechanical, electrical, you name it. There were students from every branch. This is another way to teach people to talk to each other, which is missing, right? So if you put them all together and give them a problem and shake them up and mix them up in a project, they're going to start thinking about different things. I still remember the first time we did the course, an engineer came and said, I never realized that I'm building a laser measurement device. I need an industrial design guy to make sure that it can be held in their hand properly. You see these little connections between different ways of looking at the problem and coming together also requires this kind of a mixing of students from different disciplines. Again, I go back to what Sudhir said. It's about building relationships with industry, among students, across student disciplines. So it's that creates the kind of dynamic we are talking about.
So the challenge is it is a lot of emotional labor. Building these relationships is a lot of emotional labor. But in addition, the funding mechanisms are not oriented towards facilitating relationship building. Most of the funding mechanisms is you either buy an equipment or those kind of physical artifacts are emphasized more than providing grants for collaboration and so on. Like I was talking about that they have this couple of models in the US, the inter-university collaboration model, IUCC, something like that. In that model, the way it works is the initial grant is given, a small grant is given for a number of institutions. For a period of 1 year, they can go and prospect and conduct small conferences or events to find potential companies which are interested in having some of their problems solved. And after they find some relevant problems and companies which are willing to commit some amount, then the next level grant comes in. So it is a two-stage grant, but the first grant is a more of an exploratory one, where it gives an option for more people to go and connect with different stakeholders, but they, at the end of it, they have to come up with some proposals along with some institutions or private sector organizations that are willing to fund that. Once these connections are established, then the next level grant is given, where students can be involved in that process, and you create that network between a company, faculty, and a student. And it is across institutions. It is not given to one institution. It is given to a cluster of institutions. So that kind of model is something which can be explored from a policy perspective. But at a grassroots level, it is rebuilding relationships is something which is very critical.
I was going to ask, there is one more person, and it would be nice if she could also give her comments if she is willing to do so. Please do. Unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, good evening, sir. My name is Hemlata. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I am from the industry. I've got more than 42, 43 years of working to the entire value chain. And during my tenure in the industry, I have been really pursuing with the academia to develop certain specific problems.
Just to add, she's from Shipbuilding Corporation in Cochin Shipyard. And she's also a mentor to this NIT Calicut as part of this capacity building program.
CB.
Thank you.
So now I am mentoring a small startup. Sir, the problem during the industry, I'll just say, when you go to an institute and you say, I want something to be developed, how focused that assistant professor or professor is able to give that problem is a challenge, because it is not a problem. Sir, from NIT Trichy also I would like to bring in. It is because of the curriculum pressures and the other pressures they have, their commitments, their own evaluating systems, their grades, their next, their personal advancement, their children's demand, of course the parents' demand. Sir, traditionally our engineering studies have been with the industry. The last year you have to do a project, and the project has to be industry relevant, and you will be based on the project only, you will be getting a job. But over the year, that project, doing the project is becoming highly diluted. That you do something and put something paper and you are finishing the paper. That could be one of the reason why industry connect is lacking. Because back home, when we were all doing the engineering, we were asked to go to the industry and beg for the concerned person to share his problem. And we were not forced to, we were not allowed to even take any remuneration from them. But right now the situation in the industry, in the academy, is that only if there is a grant for a particular problem, the faculty and the students are ready to work because of their other constraints, because students are not interested. So it is not that. But you go to MSM in India or in Kerala even, every company has got technical problem to solve. Every company. Today, it may be a small problem of a PLC correction or an automation, or you say like in my process, this particular thing is getting rusted fast. Some technical problem is there in MSME and they are trying to circumvent. So if there is a mechanism in which the industry and the academia can go to that problem and solve it, and build an ecosystem in which, so then the next problem is all the MSMEs or industries are working on others' money. It's the bank loan. So they cannot depend upon or wait the academia to give me the solution so that I move to the next. So what should be the solution for this is, if the academia, one one group or one system, one process is there which is equally professional and time bound and accountable like an industry, then the trust will build up. Each and every company will come with a problem. What I feel is each institute should definitely solve the technical problems time bound and be behind and own the solution. Any solution, any technical solution once given, it is not going to solve it in one shot. It has to be iterated, modified. So if the academia system owns the solution and if the industry is confident that yes, if I am getting the solution tomorrow also, if I have got a problem, it will be solved iteratively.
I can go back.
If the trust is there, then definitely will come. And after some time, then only the industry will pay, sir. As Sudhir sir has rightly told, getting a grant from the government and proving it and giving the completion certificate. So today when time is money for the industry, the small industry, and the banks are the most efficient one, no? Their clock starts ticking the moment the money is taken. So companies and small industries cannot survive in such this thing when the system at the academia is loose or not visible. I will not say loose. The faculty may be very, very forthcoming. They would have done beautiful projects. Accountability will be there. But is it apparent to the industry that yes, if I go to this institute, my problem will be solved? So that trust building, it's not that both are not good. The system of a business sort of activity in the academia and a willingness for the industry to come to the academy. Both are essential. I think Sudhir sir is doing a lot of work on that. Still, though, it is evolving because now with the grants and this thing, when I see in NIT, there is one professor who is worried about why this project is not coming to us, why this project went to some others. So they are tracking on projects. So if, I think it will take some time, but down the line, definitely industry and academia interaction will be happening in a much better way. And as you said, a curriculum modification is also one of my suggestions, sir. Instead of telling one project right from the first semester to last semester, one industry problem has to be solved. If it is brought into the curriculum, then students themselves will be scrambling to go out and see, okay, what is the technical problem? They'll write this thing, and it can improve, and they will get the excitement of solving something in the real world. That's my comment. Things are evolving, but it has to be done in a more faster. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It has been great. Even though we have had a small number of audience, this has been the lecture where we have had the most discussions among the participants. So we are really very happy about that. And Shyam, you want to say something so that we can potentially close the session?
I thank you all for participating in this session. We are keen and open to having more people from both industry and universities to participate in this CRE lecture series, which is meant to bring ways of increasing and reimagining engineering innovation in every possible way in all forms of engineering. This has been a very useful discussion. Please encourage your friends and others, anybody who may be interested, to come and attend these lectures. We meet every 2 weeks we have on our website, we have now 61 videos of all the lectures that have been presented in the last 4 years in this forum, and by India and world's best experts in engineering on various aspects of how innovation is being done in India and abroad, and what can be done, what is needs to be improved, problems, and great new ideas of wonderful innovation. I think India, especially, and everywhere else, if India could do such great innovations in the past, there's no reason Indian engineering cannot be in the forefront in the world again. Please encourage your friends to attend these lectures and introduce them to the website, and let us know the address if they are interested. We'll send them reminders about the next lecture, which is will be coming up. So our next lecture is going to be on 18th. That is next Wednesday. And can you tell us the topic of the next lecture, Sudhir and Sal?
Yeah, it is by Professor Christopher Brown from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. It's a very good undergraduate engineering institute, and he's going to talk about Nam Su's axiomatic design, how axiomatic design can be used in a number of areas, everything from products to even designing for sustainability. He has had a lot of industrial experience, and he does a lot of projects for industry as well. So he'll be our next speaker on the 18th.
Thank you so much, and best wishes. Please stay in touch.